Episode 21. I'm a monster. Although Quinn had no idea what was happening, just from looking at Peter's face he could tell it was serious. Quinn then looked behind to see Layla lying there still sleeping away. It was important for Quinn to be there when Layla woke up. He had to convince her to not tell anyone her secret, but right now it seemed like Borden was in trouble. Quinn then got back to the incident at the canteen. When Quinn was in trouble, Borden stepped up to help him. Although there probably wasn't much Quinn could do to help, you wouldn't know if he didn't try. What kind of person would he be if he couldn't help Borden now? Alright, come on, Quinn said. Let's hurry. The two of them quickly ran through the hallways until they had finally reached the assembly hall. It was currently a large empty hall with marble flooring and a stage at the front. It hadn't been used for anything yet so far, but it was the area where the students would be called if they were to have a meeting. When the two of them entered the assembly hall, there were already multiple students there mumbling about a commotion. Did you see what happened? Yeah, that guy's a monster. How could he do that? Luckily, the second-year students were here to stop him. The assembly hall was completely trashed. Craters and rubble had formed on parts of the walls and ground. Burn marks and other things were there as well, and there was even blood. Something Quinn could smell the second he had entered the room. What happened here? Quinn asked. Where's Borden? Clearly a fight had taken place here and Quinn feared the worst. I don't know, Peter replied. Me and Borden were busy messing around, practicing our earth ability together. That's when a bunch of second years I'd never seen before came up to us asking for Borden. Borden told me not to worry, but of course I'm so worried, so I followed them. That's when I saw them take him to the assembly hall, but two of the students stood guard and wouldn't let me come inside. I didn't know what to do, so that's when I came looking for you. Quinn and Peter then went around asking the students what happened, but when they did, the students seemed to avoid the question or completely ignore them, as if they were told not to tell anyone what they had seen. While Peter continued to ask the students that were still in the hall about what happened, Quinn already knew that they wouldn't give him any more answers, so he started to do some inspecting of his own. The smell of iron in the room was thicker than anything else to Quinn, and it led him to an area where dried up could be seen on the floor. Inspect. Name, Borden Blade. Race, human. Blood type, O negative. Quinn started to inspect the battle scene and found more traces of blood, but when he used the inspect skill on them, it wouldn't show him any information at all. It would only show a bunch of question marks. Do I have to use the inspection skill on them in person? Quinn thought. It was a shame the blood on the floor had already dried up, otherwise Quinn would have used the syringe he had on hand. Just then, Peter had finished questioning everyone and returned to Quinn. It doesn't look like anyone wants to talk, Peter said. Figures. Let's just head back to our dorm. Who knows, he might have returned. The two of them then headed back to the dorm room together, and when they entered, they were surprised to actually see Borden already there. However, something wasn't right. Borden wasn't his regular self. Just by looking at him, Quinn and Peter could tell he had been in a rough fight. Bruises and scuff marks everywhere, large cuts on his back. He looked like he had been in a tough battle. Not only that, but Borden didn't even greet them when the two entered. The Borden they had come to know was not the same Borden right now. Borden just stayed there lying down on his bed. Borden, what happened? Is everything alright? Peter asked. Yeah, just leave me be, I'll be fine, Borden said. If you stay near me, you will just get hurt anyway. What are you talking about, Borden? Peter shouted. Look at you. You have to go to the doctor's office. Come on, let's go. Just leave me alone, please, Borden said quietly. Quinn, come on, say something. He needs to go to the doctor's office, right? But as Peter turned around to seek support from Quinn, Quinn was nowhere to be seen. Even he thinks I'm a monster, Borden mumbled to himself. Just outside the dorm room, Quinn was leaning up against the door, panting hard and sweating. Although he had no reaction when looking at people anymore, it was different when he saw Borden. Borden still had fresh cut marks all over his body, and the smell coming off him was strong. Suddenly, Quinn felt like he had a craving for a little bit of blood. It was something he could control. It wasn't like the last time where his body had taken over, but it had brought back bad memories for him, and he was a little afraid of what might have happened. I really need to find out what's going on with this strange system ability I have. Then a thought came into his head. There was a pending problem that he still hadn't dealt with. Although Borden was acting strange right now, Quinn knew he was safe. Whatever problems Borden were dealing with now would just have to wait. Every second wasted meant there was a chance for Layla to wake up, and who knew what would happen when she did. Just then, at the same time in the doctor's office, in the corner at the back of the room, Layla slowly started to open her eyes. Huh? What happened? Layla said. Where am I? As Layla looked around the room, she started to rub her neck, and at the same time, images had flashed through her head of what had happened at the library. She remembered everything. Episode 22, Layla's Request. When images of what had happened to Layla started flashing through her head, she immediately started to get this tingling feeling over her body. She was reacting to the memories of Quinn biting into her. It wasn't a painful memory, but quite an addictive feeling. The sensation of the blood rushing through her body. Her face was starting to turn a little red just thinking about it. That's when she lifted her hand and placed it on her neck. Huh? I can't feel anything. Oh, so you're awake, Haley said with a smile. You were sleeping so peacefully there, I didn't know when you were going to wake up. How did I get here? Layla asked. Oh, a boy came in and dropped you off. He said he was your friend. I can't remember his name, but he had short, black, curly hair. Haley said with a smile, thinking about the two of them. This confirmed Layla's thought. Quinn must have brought her here right after biting her. Haley then noticed that Layla was rubbing the side of her neck with her hand. Oh, I got rid of those 2 marks for you. Do you remember what happened? Once again, as she thought back to the memory of Quinn biting her, she started to get goosebumps all over her body. I'm not sure, maybe it was a beast? Layla replied. A beast? Yeah, I hear sometimes a stray can come out with the students while they're training through the portals, Layla said nervously, hoping that Haley would believe her lie. Well, whatever it was, I'm sure someone else will deal with it. It's just a good thing. Quinn was running through the school halls as fast as he could. He needed to make it to the doctor's office before Layla woke up. He had no idea how Layla would react. Not only that, but what were the consequences of biting someone? If it was like some of the vampire novels Quinn had read in the library, some vampires had the ability to turn others. Right now, Quinn thought that might be a better situation than everyone finding out about his ability. Finally, Quinn had reached the doctor's office, and he pulled the door wide open. Oh, hello again, Haley said. If you're looking for the girl, you just missed her. She left a little while ago. Really? Did she happen to say anything? Quinn asked. Judging by Haley's reaction, it didn't seem like Layla had said anything, but he needed to make sure. Oh, you mean about the wound? She said that a beast might have attacked her, although I highly doubt that. It looked more like a snake bite, but how did it manage to get into the school and all the way up her neck? Haley continued to ramble on. She often did this as she was left on her own a lot of the time, being the only doctor stationed at the school. It was a lowly job. Thanks for letting me know, Quinn said as he closed the door. Why did Layla decide to keep it a secret? Quinn thought. He had basically assaulted the poor girl. Could it be that she didn't remember what happened, or maybe she was planning to use blackmail against him? But that didn't make sense. She had nothing to gain. Quinn had always thought like this. People, when they did something, always did it for selfish reasons. That's just the way people were. He couldn't believe that Layla would keep this a secret for no reason. Just then, while Quinn was outside the doctor's office, thinking of what to do next, he felt a hand on his shoulder. You and I, we need to talk, Layla said. Had she been waiting there this whole time? This was bad. Layla clearly indicated that she knew something, which meant losing her memory of the events was unlikely. The two of them then headed to the library where the incident took place. Quinn felt a bit more relaxed. Taking him here meant she wasn't looking for a fight, as there were other students in the room. The two of them sat at a table and activated the orb so only the two of them could be heard. As they looked into each other's eyes for a bit, Quinn started to run multiple scenarios through his head. If worst came to worst, he might have to silence her. What happened at the library? What did you do? Layla asked, rubbing her neck. Why bother asking if you already know what happened? Quinn asked. Just tell me what you want. I don't know if you know this, but I kept an eye on you for longer than you think. After observing you for a while, I came to a conclusion. You're a vampire, aren't you? Quinn started to laugh nervously, hoping to throw Layla off track. He was actually amazed by how she had come to the conclusion so fast, when it even took him a while. Even if she did see everything he had done so far, he didn't think this was the natural conclusion someone would come to. And why would you think that? I saw you lifting that boy's neck, At the time I thought you doing something else, 'cause I couldn't see clearly, Layla said as her ear started to heat up a little. But after what you had done to me, it confirms it. Quinn started to sweat slightly at the integration. He wasn't worried about Layla herself, but the trouble she could bring him in the future. Quinn didn't know what to say, and thought he would wait for Layla to make her demand. Layla then took a deep breath before saying her next words. This is what Quinn was waiting for, her request. I want you to hear me out. I want you to make me a vampire. Quinn was so shocked by the words that had come out of Layla's mouth that he nearly fell out of his seat. What? Do you realize what you are saying right now? Please, Layla said as if she was begging him. It's a childhood dream of mine. This type of thing only happens in books or fairy tales, and now I have the chance for it to happen right now, she said with her eyes lit up. Now Quinn realized why Layla didn't tell anyone. Simply put, this girl was crazy. Episode 23. An Assistant. Layla had grown up her whole life reading fantasy stories and comics about all sorts of things. Before the whole war started, her father used to work as a writer, so her home was filled with books and stories, and her favorite ones were always about vampires. She loved everything about them, how they had to keep their identity secret to the world, the super strength they had, the super speed, and the fact that they could live on nearly forever. When abilities were released to the world, it made fantasy stories a thing of the past. Many people read stories because they were fantasy. It allowed them to imagine doing something that they could never do, but now that humans actually had special powers, what was the point? However, the love for vampires never died down for Layla, it only grew. If abilities are exciting, then that means somewhere out there, maybe vampires did too. When she saw Quinn's actions, she had already convinced herself that he was a vampire. Quinn was right when he thought a normal person wouldn't have come to the same conclusion, but that was because Layla wasn't a normal person. Layla then suddenly got out of her seat and started to bow down to Quinn on her knees. The students in the room, although they couldn't hear their conversations, couldn't help but look at them. Please, I'll do anything for you, Layla said. All right, I understand. Please get up, Quinn said. The two of them sat down at their seats again, before Quinn started to speak. He let out a big sigh, thinking about how he was going to explain this to her. It's not what you think, Quinn said. I'm not a vampire. I became like this from an ability book. Suddenly, the smile on Layla's face disappeared. You know what that means, right? Quinn asked. Layla nodded. Quinn was basically telling her it was impossible for him to give her this ability. The reason was that a human body could only activate one ability. When learning an ability, it mutated the genes inside of your body, but once your genes had been mutated, it could no longer change or add a second mutation. Because Layla already had the ability of telekinesis, it meant Layla was unable to learn a second ability. Then why did you hide this from the academy? Why did you tell them you had no ability? If you got this from an ability book, you can't be an original. Have you ever heard of an ability like this? Quinn asked. Layla thought about it for a while and realized there was nothing quite like it. There was never a record of an ability requiring someone to drink blood. But if you told the school you got it from an ability book, one that's not even being registered, and you aren't an original, you can make a fortune selling the book, Layla said excitedly. I wish that were true, but I can't do that either, Quinn explained. When I learnt the ability, the book simply vanished. Layla was debating whether Quinn was telling the truth or not, but she had no choice but to believe him. It was the only explanation of why Quinn was so adamant in hiding his ability. Ability books didn't just vanish. They were books. They could be passed on for others to learn. If people found out about this, multiple companies and the military would put immense pressure on Quinn to share the ability with the world, and with no powerful family backing him, Layla couldn't imagine what would be done to him. They would never believe him if he said he got it from an ability book and it disappeared. Quinn then proceeded to tell Layla about everything that had happened so far, but left out the details about the game-like system, only stating that he continued on as normal when suddenly he had this incurable hunger. Layla felt like it was a mixture of things she had read about vampires before. Quinn didn't die in the sun but felt incredibly weak. She was just as interested to learn more about his vampire-like ability. Fine, I will keep this as a secret, but only on one condition. I want to help you out, Layla said. Clearly you don't know much about this thing, so much so that you had gone out of control and bit me in the neck. We can't have you going around school biting people. They'll take you away in a heartbeat. If you need to feast on someone, then feast on me, Layla said, placing her hand on herself. Quinn started to think about the situation. Having Layla as a helper was a big advantage. Quinn himself wanted to test multiple things about the system, and here, he had someone offering to help for free. But it truly felt like Layla was telling the truth. Not only that, but Layla seemed to be more knowledgeable about vampires than himself. Perhaps she would even be able to help him in his research. It's a deal, Quinn said, as the two of them shook hands. Layla was happy that Quinn had accepted. The truth was, Layla still hadn't given up on the idea of being a vampire. Unlike Quinn, Layla wasn't too sure that what Quinn had was an ability in the first place. An ability was usually a specific set of skills, but Quinn had completely changed, as if he was no longer human. Alright, the first thing is first, you're going to need to take some of my blood, Layla said. That way if you're getting hungry again, you can drink some of that. Layla then pulled down her shirt slightly, and started to show her neck towards Quinn. What are you thinking? We can't do it here in front of the library. And I'm not just going to bite into your neck. As the two continued to talk and chat about things in the library about what to do next, Vorden had entered the library and could see Quinn talking to Layla, both chatting and smiling away. Have you forgotten about me that quickly already? Vorden said. You're mine and I'm not letting anyone hurt you. Episode 24, A School Secret. Peter was currently running around the school looking for Quinn or Vorden. For some reason, both of his new friends had suddenly started acting very strange, and Peter didn't know what to do about it. His life at his previous school had been hell, and he did everything he could to serve those above him. And for the first time ever, he had made friends that protected him. Quinn, even though he was a low level himself, had stood up for Peter and Vorden, who had not only protected him, but helped him learn his new ability. Something had happened to Vorden, and suddenly he was acting strange. Although Peter had no clue what was going on with Quinn, he had some idea about what had changed Vorden. It was after whatever had happened at the assembly hall with the second-year students. But no matter who he would talk to about it, not one person would give him an answer. Some even began to threaten him. That's when Peter could hear a familiar voice. While walking down the hallway, Peter could hear someone speaking, a voice he recognized. As he turned the corner, he saw that it was indeed Vorden. Vorden stood there staring idly at the ground. Peter quickly hid back around the hallway corner. So far, whenever Peter had spotted Vorden, he would just ignore him and walk away without even speaking to him. But now it sounded like Vorden was speaking to someone else. Would you two calm down? Vorden said. There was then a brief pause before Vorden spoke again. I don't care if he hurt the little one's feelings, it's not like Quinn isn't allowed to talk to other people. Again, there was a slight pause. Look, if you get involved and hurt them, I won't forgive you. I won't let something like last time happen again. The whole time Peter was listening into the conversation, the only voice he could hear was Vorden's, but it was clear that he was speaking to someone. Peter couldn't take it anymore and decided to take a peek, and as he did, still the only person he could see was Vorden. Did the other person leave already? Peter thought. Just then he saw Vorden start to walk off. The bell had rung, indicating that it was the end of their lunch break, and it was time to head to afternoon classes. That's when the library doors opened, and Quinn and Layla appeared out walking together. Quinn, Peter said as he waved him over. I'll meet you at the front gate tonight once classes are over, Quinn said to Layla, before leaving to join Peter. The two of them then started to walk off to class together. Hey, are you okay, man? Peter asked. I was worried about you when you suddenly bolted out of the room like that. Yeah, sorry, man. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Otherwise, my underwear would have turned brown. Whoa, too much information, Peter said. Anyway, I'm glad you're okay. Look, I'm really worried about Vorden. Ever since he came back from that assembly hall, he's been acting strange. Quinn placed his hand on Peter, seeing that he was clearly startled. This whole time, Quinn had more important things to worry about, but now that he had solved the most pressing matter, he had time to focus on other things. Don't worry, we'll find out what's going on together. When they entered their next class, they could see that Vorden was already in his seat, sitting down, ready even before them. Oh, hey guys, how are you doing? Vorden said with a smile. Peter went to sit in his seat to the right of Vorden, while Quinn went to sit in his seat to the left of Vorden. "Hey, are you feeling better?" Peter asked. "Earlier it seemed like you were kinda sulking." "Yeah, don't worry. I just kinda got thrown around a bit by the second year and it got me pretty down," Vorden replied. "What happened at the assembly hall?" Quinn asked. Vorden's face slightly changed. It was as if he was trying to hold something back. Vorden clenched his fists for a few seconds, and finally relaxed his hands. "Guys, don't worry about it too much. You know I'm strong, and know I can handle myself." Although Peter was quite satisfied now with Vorden, as he seemed to be his regular self, Quinn noticed that Vorden seemed to be holding something back, almost suppressing something, when he asked that question. As other students started to enter the classroom when they saw Vorden, they immediately started to whisper. If Vorden would look back at them, they would turn their head as soon as possible. As the students sat down, the talks continued, and several different words could be heard. Monster, freak, weirdo, crazy, and all of these words were being aimed at Vorden. It was as if the whole school was sharing a secret that Peter and Quinn weren't allowed to know, and not even Vorden himself would say what had happened. After hearing these words, Quinn noticed that Vorden stayed there motionless, with his head down. He hadn't even written any notes down in his notebook about the lesson. Although it seemed like no one would tell him or Peter what had happened, Quinn now had another ally that might be able to help him, and that was Layla. At the end of the class, the teacher Dell projected a screen in front of the whole class. There was a list of names, each sorted into a different category. "Please look at this carefully and see where your name is, as tomorrow will be the start of your combat classes," Dell explained. The list was split up into several different categories. Each one was different depending on what type of ability you had. Elemental abilities, transformation abilities, enhancement abilities, and so on. That's when Quinn also noticed that his and a few other names were not on the list, including Vorden's. If your name is not on the list, it's because either your ability doesn't fall into one of the categories, or you are an original with a unique ability. You are free to choose to go to whichever class you believe suits you. Students are also able to switch between combat classes if they wish. These are not set in stone, but the school's recommendation based on your ability. The list of available classes was then sent to each student's wristwatch, where they were to register for the type of class they would be interested in. "I wonder what combat class would be best for me," Quinn thought as he looked at the long list. Episode 25, A School Secret. After classes had finished for the day, Vorden had offered to help Peter with his training again, especially since tomorrow the two of them would be in the same combat classes, the elemental class. "Hey, do you want to come with us?" Peter asked. "Nah, I won't bother you guys, I wouldn't be much help anyway," Quinn replied. Peter was pleased that it seemed like the group had gotten back normal again. There was no tension between the three of them, and Peter wished it would stay that way forever. Just then, when Quinn had left, Vorden and Peter were left in the room. That's when Vorden asked Peter a question. "Hey, have you seen Quinn hanging around with a girl lately?" Vorden asked. "Come to think of it, I saw him exit with a girl at the library. It was the same one who was at the test with us that day, with the bow and arrow." After Peter had given an answer, for a split second, Peter felt like he saw the expression on Vorden's face change. But Quinn blinked, and looked again, and Vorden seemed to be fine. "Maybe he's gone and got himself a little girlfriend," said Vorden, laughing. Quinn had, of course, decided to ditch the other two, because he had already made plans to meet up with Layla beforehand. The two of them were to meet at the school gate. But before the two of them were to meet, Quinn decided to stop by the science lab. Although most lessons in military school were about combat or how to use technology, science was still a core subject. It was because of scientists that the human race had discovered how to use all the different technologies they had in the world today. So students were encouraged to continue to learn science throughout their service time, in hopes they would continue to in the future. The classrooms were empty for the day, and the important equipment were locked in a storage room. But Quinn wasn't looking for anything too fancy. All he needed was some test tubes and small quartz. After searching around the room for a while, he found where they kept the test tubes. He took a total of 5. Even though there were many there, if he took too much it would be suspicious, and Quinn couldn't carry more than 5 without having to worry about them breaking or not. Quinn shoved the 5 test tubes into a messenger bag he was carrying, and wrapped them up in a spare shirt he took from his room. Quinn currently had a total of 60 of 200 EXP until his next level up. 50 experience points had carried over from the last quest, and he had received 10 EXP from his 2 daily quests. So far, with each level up, he would gain 1 additional stat point and 5 points of HP. Although Quinn had gotten stronger through this, it wasn't the fastest way for him to improve his strength. Quinn realized the system had offered him the chance to gain an additional stat point 2 times as long as he drank his victim's blood, but when he drank Layla's blood, he still gained a stat point. This was what Quinn wanted to test out today. It was 6 o'clock in the evening and the sun was just starting to set, meaning Quinn wasn't affected by the sun right now. As planned, Layla was standing there waiting for him by the gate, with her bow on her back. Students who used weapons could carry it with them around most of the time. There was always the chance of an attack or a beast escaping through a portal. After the two of them met, they decided to walk to the nearby park that was in between the convenience store and the school. Then they ventured away from the trail into the woods, where they were behind cover. No one ventured in these parts, and it was hard for them to be seen. "So, are we going to do this?" Layla asked excitedly. Quinn still found it weird, then rather than being scared by the whole situation, Layla was excited. "All right, close your eyes," said Quinn. Layla closed her eyes and was ready. She could still remember the satisfying feeling from the last time, and couldn't wait to feel it again. Although she was a bit nervous when a thought came to her head that Quinn's lips would be on her neck. Suddenly, though, Layla felt a small prick in her arm. Layla opened her eyes and noticed that a needle was there. "What? You didn't think I was going to bite you, did you?" Layla's cheeks suddenly went bright red. If it wasn't for the needle in her hand, she would have tried kicking Quinn away. Once the syringe had been filled up, Quinn squirted it out into one of the test tubes he brought with him. "Is it okay if I fill another one?" Quinn asked. Layla didn't say anything and held out her arm. She was still a bit embarrassed about what had happened earlier. Once Quinn had filled up 2 test tubes, he put one of the blood-filled tubes in his bag while holding the other. "Inspect. Blood of Layla Monroe. Blood type A positive." Quinn then looked at Layla and used his inspect skill once again. "Name, Layla Monroe. Race, human. Ability, telekinesis. HP, 12 of 12. Blood type A positive." It was as Quinn thought. When using the inspect skill on the blood, it only showed him what blood type it was and who it was from, just like the time at the assembly hall. But if the person was in front of him, it would reveal their ability, HP, and blood type. Some of the blood marks in the hall only revealed question marks, assuming that Quinn either had to have run into the person before or used the inspect skill on the person once before. Quinn looked at the test tube and gulped. He then pulled out the cork at the top and started sniffing the blood. "You're not going to drink it right here, are you?" Layla asked. "Why not? I need to know if it will make any changes." "I don't know, it feels kind of embarrassing, I can't explain." Quinn ignored Layla and looked at the blood again. The fragrance smelled quite sweet, which was different from how he remembered it before. Then suddenly, Quinn lifted the tube and drank the blood in one gulp, as if he was taking an alcoholic shot. As the blood ran down his throat, he felt a warm tingling sensation through his body. The blood was also surprisingly sweet rather than metallic. It seemed like the race change had also changed his taste buds and sense of smell. "Your HP is already full. The blood will have no effect. Blood from this person has already been consumed. No stat points will be given." Quinn was surprised to see at the information he had been given. The blood last time seemed to have a healing effect on his body. Judging by the message, if Quinn was injured, Layla's blood would allow him to regain HP. But the second message is what interested him more. The system stated because he had already consumed this blood before, that no stats would be given. This meant that as long as it was the blood of someone he hadn't drunk before, he would be able to get an extra stat point. Quinn smiled at the thought. Of course, this was only a theory of his, but Quinn wanted to test it out straight away. "I guess whatever you wanted to test out worked, judging by your creepy smile and all," Layla said. "If only there was someone else's blood I could test this on." Just then the sound of 2 people entering the woods from the playground was heard. Quinn and Layla immediately ducked down and hid behind a tree. That's when they saw 2 students starting to walk into the forest. "Now hand over your credits, otherwise I'll dig you your grave right here and no one will ever find your body," a boy's voice said. Quinn immediately recognized the voice. It was Riley. It looked like he still hadn't learned his lesson and was still up to his old tricks. Quinn then went into his bag and took out the mask he had bought at the convenience store. Last time he had let Riley go without taking any of his blood, and now he felt like it was such a waste. But this time, Quinn wouldn't let Riley go. Episode 26, Blood Types. As Quinn put on his mask, he moved in closer to where Riley and the student were, making sure to move in and out between the trees. "Hey, do you want a beating? Pass over the credits now," Riley said, holding up the student against the tree. "But I only get 10 credits a day. They're mine. This isn't fair." "Since when has this world ever been fair? Blame the people at the top for not looking out for us," Riley said. As Quinn heard those words, he realized that Riley was in the same position as him. He was only a level 2 user and was just part of the weak bunch being pushed around by those above, but that didn't mean he could do that to others. That would fix nothing. Layla followed Quinn closely and had taken out her bow and arrow. She knew from last time if Quinn had put on the mask, he was going to act. "Do you want me to help out? It will be easier with the two of us," Layla asked. "It's okay, there's something I wanted to test out," Quinn said. The last time the two of them had fought, Quinn was only a level 1. Now he was a level 2, and he also had obtained a new skill which he wanted to test, and Riley was a great test subject. Quinn started to move closer and closer. He was hoping to finish off Riley in one shot, and this was the perfect chance while his back was turned. Finally, Quinn was just about in striking distance. That's when the student held up against the tree and spotted Quinn. "Please help me," the student cried. "You idiot!" Quinn shouted as he leapt forward, hoping he could be quick enough to hit Riley before he could activate his ability. The student's warning had given Riley enough time to activate his ability and turn around. However, Quinn's fist was fast, and even though Riley put out his hands to stop the attack, Quinn's fist still managed to hit Riley in the stomach. The impact was just like last time. It was solid and felt like he was punching a wall, but the blow managed to still hurt Riley a bit. The attack was slightly stronger, and this time Quinn's fist hadn't broken. I've been waiting for you," Riley said as he put 2 fingers in his mouth and whistled. Just then, 2 students came running in from the park and into the forest. "You think you can take on 3 of us?" Riley said. Quinn looked at the 2 students running towards them, and that's when an arrow came flying from the woods and hit one of them in the knee, causing the student to instantly fall to the ground. The other students went down to his friend. "What happened?" the student said. Then he noticed an arrow in the student's leg. "Where'd this come from?" Quinn saw this as an opportunity and dashed away from Riley and started heading towards the other student. "The skill said 5 meters, right? Well, show me what you got." As soon as Quinn was within 5 meters, he activated his skill Blood Swipe, at the same time swinging his hand across. A red line of power came surging out of Quinn's fingertips and hit the student right on the chest, causing a claw-like mark, but it wasn't enough to knock him out. "Blood Swipe, Blood Swipe, Blood Swipe!" Quinn then cast 3 more blood swipes, swinging his arm out. Each blow managed to hit the student dead on, with multiple marks across his chest. He had finally collapsed to the floor. HP 11 of 15. An opponent has been defeated. 50 EXP granted. 110 of 200 EXP. Blood Swipe had no cooldown, but did use 1 point of HP per swipe. As long as Quinn had HP, he could continuously cast out his Blood Swipe skill. Riley, seeing his 2 teammates who were of equal power level to himself be defeated in an instant, started to feel scared. His body was shaking, and all he wanted to do was get out of there. He turned away from his friends and started running deeper into the forest. Quinn's speed was greater though, and was easily able to catch up. When his attack was in range, Quinn cast 2 more blood swipes aiming for the back of Riley's ankles. As they hit, Riley fell to the ground. Please don't hurt me, I'll do anything," Riley begged. "Oh, really?" Quinn then placed his watch up against Riley's. "Hand over all your credits." "But if I do, I won't have enough credits for Dan. He'll kill me," Riley said. "Is now really the time to worry about Dan?" Quinn asked. Riley quickly transferred over 50 credits that he had obtained that day over to Quinn. "So, will you let me go now?" Riley asked. Just then, Riley could see a sinister smile appear on Quinn's face through the bottom of his mask. "No," Quinn said. He then went up behind Riley and held him in a choking position. Riley tried activating his hardening skill, but Quinn's strength was still strong enough to get through and eventually caused Riley to pass out. That's for pushing me around in the canteen. Quinn then looked at Riley's body and noticed that his ankles were bleeding from where he had used the blood swipe skill. Quinn then went to his bag to pull out a test tube and held Riley's leg up, allowing the blood to slowly drip into the test tube until it filled up. Quinn also filled up a second tube for testing later on. Next were the other two students. Layla had dealt with the other when she hit with her arrow earlier, and the other student had passed out from the multiple attacks of blood swipe. Quinn then did the same with the other two students, collecting blood from their open wounds, and from where Layla's arrow had managed to pierce the student's leg. After they had finished collecting the blood, it was time for them to get out of there and leave the scene. It was getting late and it was almost curfew time. If the students were out past 10, then the guards would go out looking for you. It seemed like not only did the watches act as a credit device and power level indicator, but it was a tracker as well. Students who were found injured outside the school would be taken to the doctor's office. When the two of them arrived at the school, it was still 9 o'clock, so they had an hour before they needed to head to their dorm rooms. That's when the two of them had decided to head to the school roof instead. It was quiet up there, and no one was around, so the two of them could talk freely. "So, what you need all the blood for?" Layla asked. "You know, if you need some blood, you can just take some of mine anytime. I really don't mind." "Thanks, but I just wanted to test something out." Inspect. Quinn had used his inspect skill on each of the containers. The first was Riley's blood. "Blood type B positive." "Here goes," Quinn said, as he popped the cork open and drank the small tube of blood. "You have regained 5 points of HP, 14 of 15 HP. B positive blood type has been absorbed. Plus 1 point of agility has been added." Quinn couldn't stop smiling as he saw the message. He then went on to drink the second tube of blood. Drinking the blood no longer bothered him once he found out the taste was quite sweet. All Quinn needed to do was convince himself it was some type of juice. "You have regained 1 point of HP, HP 15 of 15. This person's blood has been consumed before. No extra stats will be given." As Quinn thought, the blood still regained his health, similar to how a potion worked in a game, but once a person's blood had been consumed, it would no longer give him any stat points. Quinn then drank the 2 other test tubes from the other students. "Blood type A negative has been absorbed, plus 1 strength point has been added. Blood type AB positive has been absorbed, plus 1 stamina point has been added." Quinn looked at messages he received and started to notice a pattern. When he drank Layla's blood, which was A positive, he had gained a strength point. It was the same when he drank the A negative blood. Riley, whose blood type was B positive, had given him an agility point, and lastly, AB positive had given him a stamina point. Assuming being positive or negative blood type didn't matter so far, A type had given him strength, B gave him agility, and AB stamina. That left one blood group that Quinn hadn't drunk from yet, which was O. Quinn couldn't help but wonder what would happen if he drank the O type. Episode 27, Soul Weapon. After absorbing all the blood tubes apart from the spare one that contained Layla's blood, Quinn was feeling stronger than ever. Name, Quinn Talon. Race, Halfling. HP 15 of 15. 110 of 200. Strength, 12. Agility, 12. Stamina, 11. If Quinn's body before was that of a top athlete in the past, then Quinn now surpassed the capabilities of regular human power. But he was still weak compared to those with an ability. Lucky for Quinn, it seemed like Riley and the other 2 students weren't very good fighters. In Quinn's old school, he would get into fights all the time, regardless of what ability they had. He saw how the others got bullied more than him, while the bullying for him lessened because they knew he was a target that would bite back. But because of this, Quinn managed to get a good grasp on how people fought, and a good grasp on different abilities. If Quinn was to face a level 2 user who was good with their ability like Layla, at this point it was still most likely he would lose. What Quinn needed more than ever was more skills he could use. Blood Swipe was great, but it only had a distance of 5 meters, and it took away his health. With other abilities, you would be able to obtain new skills by purchasing books, or being taught by someone who already knew the skill. Quinn didn't have this option, as there was no one who he knew that had the same ability as him, and that of course meant there were no skill books either. Before Layla and Quinn split ways to head back to their dorm rooms, Quinn had one last request. "What do you know about what happened to Vorden?" Quinn asked. "Oh, your blonde friend," Layla replied. "Honestly, I don't know too much, cause when everything happened, I was stuck in the hospital bed because of someone. Layla pointed at Quinn. Quinn laughed nervously. Well, do you mind finding out for me? It seems like the second years are behind us and are stopping me and Peter from getting any information. The second years are involved in this? Well, that's not good. You're not planning to get involved, are you? Layla asked, concerned. Quinn thought back to when the second years had called Quinn, Peter, and Vorden out. That Momo person had warned them not to disturb the system within the school. Quinn wanted to punch his face in, but at the time he couldn't. But now with this ability, he could grow stronger, without the need of help or relying on others, and he couldn't wait for the day he could punch that Momo's smug face in. Yeah, but I need to get stronger, of course. There was one big difference between the second years and first years, and that was something called awakening. The second years had learned how to awaken their ability. This allowed the user, regardless of the power level, to get a power boost for a short period of time. Once a user had awakened, they then could also form something called their soul weapon, a powerful weapon unique to each user that was formed in the body itself. This was different from a beast weapon, as a beast weapon could be used by anyone. After finishing everything he needed to do with Layla, the two of them split up, and Quinn said he would contact Layla via his watch when he needed her. Quinn also kept the test tube containing Layla's blood on him. What he needed to do now was figure out how long his body could go without needing blood. If Quinn was to go out on a mission or through a portal to another planet, there might be times where Quinn wouldn't be able to contact someone for a while. In these situations, he needed to know how many test tubes of blood to take with him. So for now, Quinn would do his best to avoid blood until the system message appeared again. If he fought anyone along the way, he could keep their blood for after. He didn't want to waste any precious stat points after all. Quinn headed back to his dorm room where Vorden and Peter were still practicing their Earth abilities. I did it! I finally did it! Peter shouted. Peter held a small, round, solid lump of mud in his hand. As he moved his hands, he was able to change the shape of the mud. He turned it from a ball into a long staff, then back into a ball again. The only problem is, as a level 1 user, you'll need to keep some type of mud on you at all times, Vorden explained. Perhaps it's best you keep it as a round staff and carry it around with you. Then you will always have something to take with you. Vorden then grabbed the mud and started to demonstrate. He did the same thing as Peter and started to change the mud ball into different shapes. But the difference between speeds was noticeable. While Peter took a long time to form the shape he wanted, Vorden was changing the mud in seconds. Wow, is this cause you're a level 5 user, Vorden? Peter asked. No, this is something you should be able to do as well. It just takes practice. When I copy someone's ability, I also copy whatever power level it is at. So everything I can do with this mud, you should be able to do as well. Vorden then turned the mud ball into a sharp dagger and placed it up against Peter's neck. See? Not so useless after all. Peter gulped as he looked down at the sword, but then realized that Vorden had already changed the ball's shape into a harmless stick and handed it back to Peter. Oh, Quinn, you're back, Vorden said, smiling. Did you have fun? Yeah, a little bit, Quinn said. Vorden here said you got a girlfriend, Peter quickly added. What? Quinn said. You know that girl that was with us at the testing that time. Oh, her. No, we're just... Quinn started to think about what his relationship with Layla was. He wouldn't exactly call them friends, and they definitely were lovers. Layla did almost everything Quinn asked without answers. It was almost a master and servant relationship, but if Quinn said that, they would definitely get the wrong idea. We're just acquaintances. I was talking about how she got to use her weapon and discussing what classes to take, since I won't be going to the elemental class with you two. Oh, so you finally decided then? Peter asked. Yeah, I'm going to join the beast weapons class. Episode 28, Weapons Hall. When the next morning had arrived, Quinn made sure to pack some things with him in his bag. He put in the blood tube that contained Layla's blood, the 4 remaining empty tubes, and also the mask that he had bought at the convenience store. He never knew when a situation would come up when he had to use these things, so it was better to be prepared than unprepared. The 3 boys headed down for breakfast as a group as usual, and like always, people would give Quinn, Vorden, and Peter looks. Vorden decided to split from Quinn and Peter and sat on his own on the higher power level tables. But even then, no one seemed to be sitting next to Vorden. It was clear for some reason the second-year students were making Vorden a target, even though he was no longer hanging out with Quinn and Peter. Do me a favor, will you? Quinn asked. Keep an eye on Vorden while you're in your combat classes today. If anything happens, let me know. But if something happens, I won't be strong enough to help, and you can't exactly do anything either, Peter replied. Peter was right. Quinn right now could barely deal with the level 2 first-year students, never mind the second-year students. But at the same time, Quinn hated the fact that they might be targeting Borden just because he chose to hang out with them. Perhaps Quinn could find a weak one in the group and target him at night for questioning. These groups always had a weak person acting as a shuttle for them, asking them to carry their things, grab their food for them, etc. I'm not telling you to get involved. I don't think Borden is expecting you to help him out either, but just let me know what you see. Peter then gave a quick look around the room to make sure no one was hearing the two of them before giving a nod. Finally, after finishing their breakfast, it was time for their combat classes. After registering what type of class you wanted to attend via the watch, it would then indicate what room you would be in for training that day. Quinn had chosen the Beast Weapons class after thinking long and hard. Quinn was known as a no-ability user, so it was really the only option for him. Otherwise, he would have to just sit back at the back of the other classes and do nothing. The weapon class was popular among those that had an ability that was able to enhance it. Those who could slightly see the future or had telekinesis ability like Layla would attend these classes, but Quinn wanted to find a weapon that would suit him and his fighting style. The weapons hole was away from the main school building and off to the side in its own separate building. It was a single, large, one-room building that had an Asian palace feeling to it. To enter the building, students needed to scan their watch into the scanner, and then the two large doors would slide open. Although the outside of the building had an Eastern feeling to it, the inside was completely different. It was a large room where the ceiling was about 20 meters high. The room had no decorations, apart from mountains and mountain of weapons hung up on the wall, and in the center of the room was a round, raised platform. Standing at the back of the hole was a bald-headed man wearing leather armor and had a long katana blade by his side. But the katana blade hilt was jagged and rough, and the back of the blade the same. It looked like it had been forged from an animal that was not of this planet. The man remained silent at the back with his eyes closed. Quinn could only assume the man was their teacher, being the oldest one in the room. The room slowly started to fill up with students, and that's when Layla had entered and spotted Quinn. She immediately came over to him and started chatting. Unlike when Vorden had spoken to Quinn, the other students didn't really pay attention because Layla herself was also considered weak. "This class is a lot more popular than I thought," Layla said. The room was filled with about 30 students inside. The other classes had around 50, but it was still more than they had expected. "Yeah, I wonder what weapon I should pick," Quinn said, staring at the wall. "Well, I already have mine," Layla said, pointing to her bow on her back. A lot of the students in the room already had weapons of their own. Quinn and a couple of others were the only ones who didn't have anything on them. Just then, while Quinn was busy staring at the wall, the other students started to get rowdy as someone entered the weapons hall. "What is she doing here? Isn't she an elemental user? Why would she be here? Who cares? Maybe we can spare with her, and if we beat her, we can ask her on a date." As Quinn turned around to see who the girl was everyone was talking about, it turns out he had already met her before. It was Erin Healy, the ice ability user. "I wonder why she decided to go to this class instead of the elemental class," Layla asked. Just then the bald-headed man opened his eyes and shouted at the top of his voice, "Attention!" Everyone froze and turned to look at the old man. "My name is Leo and I will be your teacher for today." Leo then pulled out his katana blade from his sheath and pointed it out in front of him. "Your first task will be to pick your weapon. You must think carefully. Your weapon is your lifeline. When your ability won't work, the only thing you can rely on is your own skills. Now go and choose one from the wall around you." The students fanned out and started to look at weapons. Even those who had beast weapons already were trying out new ones. Quinn looked at the wall and saw all sorts of things. Axes, short swords, spiked clubs, whips, scythes. There was so much to choose from. Quinn was really having a hard time. Quinn looked at Layla and her bow. It matched up well with her telekinesis ability. If Quinn was to pick a ranged weapon, he would never be able to be as good as Layla. He needed something that suited him right now and his ability. Quinn then walked up to one of the random swords on the wall and used his inspect skill. Corge sword, tier basic beast weapon, strength +3, agility -2. The sword is incompatible with the skill blood swipe. The sword Quinn looked at was large in size and looked heavy. Quinn needed to be fast, so losing some points in agility was a definite no-no. But what surprised him was how much information his inspect skill had given him. It even told him if his blood swipe could be used with it. Maybe it wouldn't be so hard picking out a weapon after all, thanks to Quinn's inspect skill. Episode 29. Picking a Weapon. As soon as Quinn realized that his inspect skill would tell him the stats of each weapon, he started to go around the room looking for the perfect one for him. Quinn rolled out anything that was too heavy. Although the strength stat it added was good, Quinn needed to be fast and agile in the night. All the weapons Quinn had inspected so far was at the basic tier level, the lowest level a weapon could be. Weapons were categorized into 8 different levels depending on which beast core it was made with. Of course, this was based on beasts from planets that had already been discovered. There was sure to be other planets with stronger beasts and abilities that they had yet to find out about, that may be categorized above that. In the human world today, there were 2 known weapons of this class. The world called them demon weapons instead. After searching around the room for a while, Quinn came across a weapon that stood out from the rest. Black-horned gauntlets, basic tier beast weapon, strength 3, agility 0, stamina 0, defense 2. This weapon is compatible with the skill Blood Swipe. When used with the gauntlets, Blood Swipe will have an increase of 5% in power. The gauntlets were black in color and had little tiny horns going up the forearm. The fingertips were pointed and bladed at the ends. It made them look almost like some type of dragon claw. There were 2 reasons why the weapon had interested Quinn. The first was it was the only one that had also given him a defensive stat, not just a strength stat, but the second one stood out to him even more. It was the fact that it increases the power of his only skill, Blood Swipe. 5% didn't sound like a lot right now, but if in the future Quinn was to get more powerful, 5% would make a huge difference. There were also other bonuses. The gauntlets acted as armor for his hands, and he could still hold other weapons if he needed to. What a strange choice, young boy, Leo said. Quinn looked to his side to see who had spoken to him, then he noticed it was the bald teacher. It's not many people's first choice. With a weapon like this, you have to have no fear and get in close to your enemy. But that is also the reason it is sturdier than most and can be used as a form of defense. Quinn had already experienced fighting more than most kids. He was used to using his fists. With his Blood Swipe skill as well, he didn't always have to get up right close to his opponents. Do you mind if I try it? Quinn asked. Go ahead, Leo said, as he left to check up on other students, selecting weapons. Basic horn gauntlets equipped, strength 12, agility 12, stamina 11, defense 2. Now when Quinn checked out his status screen, he had a smaller number next to his stats, which would indicate the equipment level. Quinn now had 15 stat points in strength. He felt 3 times stronger compared to before he had discovered the system, and was ready to test out his newfound strength. Once everyone had finished picking out their weapon, Leo called everyone to gather around the center ring. Now I won't claim to be any expert in every weapon, said Leo. Some of you might be able to use your weapons better than me, but what I am an expert in is fighting with weapons alone. Fighting can be considered a game. You are always trying to predict your opponent's next move. You measure your opponent's ability, and so on. For your first lesson, I want to see what you've got. We will have a sparring match, 2 people at a time. We will all watch the match and commentate on what can be improved on. Now, are there any volunteers? In an instant, Erin was the first to put her hand up. Without even waiting for Leo to say anything, she headed for the arena in the middle and stood inside. She held a single silver longsword that shined bright. It wasn't one of the weapons that Quinn had seen on the wall, so he could only assume it had been one she already owned. At first, a lot of the students were hesitant of going up against Erin. Her reputation for being a high power level had already reached many people's ears. Oh, I also forgot to add, abilities will be banned during today's sparring sessions, Leo added. It is important that you know how to use your weapon first. Only then can you truly bring out the full potential of the weapon with your ability. After saying those words, students had raised their hands like a rocket. They all wanted to get the chance to beat the famous Ice Queen. Now that she wasn't able to use her abilities, this was their chance. In the end, a large man was selected from the crowd who wielded a 2-handed axe. He was about double the size of Erin in terms of muscle. I think you chose the wrong club. Your ice abilities will be useless here, the man said. Aaron didn't reply though and simply took her stance, waiting for her opponent to come forward first. The man charged in, wielding his large axe above his head. When he swung it down, Aaron spun her body to the side, avoiding the blow, and at the same time slashed at the back of the man's legs, causing him to stumble. She then placed her blade towards the man's neck, inches away from his throat. "I give up," the man said. Everything had happened in an instant, and the room was suddenly silenced. They all knew Aaron was strong, but it was unexpected of her to be so skillful with the blade. Most ability users, if they had a strong ability like Aaron, would rely on that power and not bother learning a weapon. But it was clear to everyone she had some practice. After the fight had finished, two men seemed to appear out of thin air, wearing a black military uniform. They then grabbed the student by both arms and escorted him to the school doctor to get healed up. The group continued to watch a few fights. The rest of the fights had lasted a lot longer than Aaron's, as most of the students were equally matched when it came to using weapons. Even when level 4 power users were fighting against level 2. When they couldn't use their abilities, it all came down to skill and the body. The next fight that had caught Leo's attention was the fight with Layla. Even though Layla could no longer use her telekinesis, with her bow, she was able to shoot ahead and predict where her opponent would turn. She had trapped her opponent multiple times and continuously asked him to give up. But her opponent was a level 3 power user, and he had his pride on the line. He didn't want to admit being defeated by a level 2 user, even if he wasn't using his ability. That's when he got reckless and decided to charge forward. But a few arrows in the boy's legs stopped him dead in his tracks before Leo had decided to call the match himself. The next pair, Quinn Talon and Brad Richardson, to the arena. Now it was Quinn's turn. With the weapons hall being indoors, Quinn was able to use his full stats and his opponent was unable to use his ability. Finally, for once, Quinn was in a situation where he didn't feel weaker than the person he was going up against. Episode 30. Too strong? As Quinn walked up to the stage, he noticed that Brandon, his opponent's indicator, showed that he was at the power level of 3. If this was a fight in the outside world, where they both could use their abilities, Quinn felt like he didn't have much chance of winning. But here in the arena, where abilities weren't allowed, Quinn had a body stronger than most. His speed was faster than most. In the novels he had read, a vampire's strength was far greater than the human race before the introduction of abilities. If they wanted to, they could have ruled the world. Brandon held a large spear in hand, which had great reach. The end was sharp, with a single curved blade at the end. Opponent power level 3, bonus EXP will be rewarded. It seemed like Quinn's day was only getting better. "Begin!" Leo shouted. Brandon immediately charged in with his spear, while Quinn stood there and took a fighting stance with both of his hands held out in front of him. When Brandon was within striking distance, he thrust his spear forward. It was fast and impressive to the people watching outside. But to Quinn, who had 12 points in agility, it was easy for him to dodge. He avoided the spear strike and ducked down. Then, before Brandon could pull the spear back, Quinn went and grabbed the spear with his hand. "What the hell?" Brandon said as he tried pulling the spear back. "Let go!" While holding the spear with one hand, Quinn opened up his other hand and swung out his fist like a claw as hard as he could at the spear. Then, a few moments later, the spear had been sliced in half. "What the? My weapon, it's faulty!" Brandon complained, but Leo did nothing to step in. Quinn rushed forward, and before Brandon could do anything, Quinn punched him hard in the stomach. Brandon's feet lifted off the ground, and it looked like his body was about to fly away. Inspect. Brandon Richardson, ability, elemental, HP 5 of 15, blood type, O positive. Quinn knew that if Brandon was to fly out of the arena, it would be considered his win, but the system wouldn't allow him to win like that. He needed to beat his opponent down to at least 1 HP. So before Brandon could be lifted into the air, Quinn grabbed him and pulled him back down, and at the same time kneed him in the face, causing Brandon's nose to bleed and his head to be sent backwards. And finally, Brandon collapsed, lying there on the ground. "Winner, Quinn Talon," Leo said. "Opponent has been defeated, 50 EXP rewarded. First time higher power level bonus 50 EXP rewarded. 220 of 200 EXP. Congratulations, you are now level 3. 20 of 400 EXP. 1 attribute point awarded. New skill, Blood Bank, unlocked." After defeating Brandon, Quinn had received multiple messages and had even leveled up. The bonus reward for defeating a level 3 user was higher than when he defeated a level 2 user. However, it was a shame that the bonus reward was only a one-time thing. With the messages, there was also a new skill that had been unlocked. Although Quinn didn't have the time to look at it now, he needed to get off the stage and look at it later. Before leaving, Quinn looked at Brandon, who was lying on the floor. Blood was dripping from his nose, and Quinn just had one thought. What a waste. It was a shame Quinn wasn't able to store or drink Brandon's blood. After all, everyone was watching. But if he did, he would have learned what the O-type blood did as well. The two military men again appeared out of thin air and took Brandon away to the doctor's office. But before Quinn could leave the arena, a couple of boys shouted from the crowd. "That's not fair," a boy said. "Brandon obviously was using a faulty weapon." "Yeah, and what was with that anyway? That idiot decided to still attack him anyway after seeing his weapon break. He should be punished," another boy added. These two were friends of Brandon. One was a level 2.5 user named Faye, while the other was a level 3 user named Loop. Leo then stepped up onto the stage and picked up the broken spear from the ground and started to inspect it. "I can guarantee you that all the weapons in this hall are not faulty. Each one has been given the same care as the next." "Then how can you explain the weapon breaking?" Faye said. "Unless it has to be it, he cheated and used an ability." As soon as accusations were made, the crowd started mumbling to each other. They could see Quinn's power level, but not many knew about Quinn having no ability. Perhaps he had an ability that simply enhanced his strength, the students thought. "Settle down, everyone. I can guarantee that no abilities were used," Leo said. "How can you be so sure?" Faye argued. Then an unexpected person had chimed in and interrupted their conversation. "You fool, will you stop being so disrespectful to the teacher?" Aaron said. "Do you not know who he is? Perhaps if I told you his war name, you would know. This man is Sergeant Leo, or known as the Blind Swordsman." The chatting between the students had gotten even louder. The name Blind Swordsman was well known among common folk. He had helped out a great deal when fighting against the Dalki. "He's blind?" Luke said, unsure whether it was true or not. "Doesn't that mean he definitely couldn't tell if the person used an ability or not?" In that instant, Leo threw a piece of the broken spear in the direction of Luke. The spear just missed Luke and had hit the back wall. Luke then started to feel a sharp stinging pain on his cheek. As he touched his cheek, he noticed a scratch mark. "I can see and hear very well, better than most of you. My ability allows me to see the aura of people, and when people start to use their ability, their auras change depending on what ability they are using. And I'm telling you now, Quinn didn't use a single ability." With that, the students started to settle down a bit. It was a memorable first day for all the students in the weapon club. So much had happened, but the class was finally over, and it was time for them to head home. Leo, however, couldn't stop thinking about the student known as Quinn. He inspected the spear again and found nothing out of the ordinary. However, what Leo didn't reveal was that from the very beginning, when Quinn had stepped into the room, he could see his aura was slightly different from everyone else's. It wasn't the same as when someone used an ability, though. It reminded him of an aura of that of the beasts or the Dalki had, one that wasn't human. "Pull up the file on Quinn Talon for me." "File found," Leo's watch replied. "Ability?" "No ability, power level 1, the watch said again. Just what are you hiding, Quinn?"